Helsa. Recently, I had several discussions with brothers and sisters of different kindreds and different tribes, and the subject was about why we seem to want to attack each other, and where is it getting us to? As a practitioner, and have been for a very long time, one of the things that I've noticed is this need for us to attack other kindreds and other tribes. And a lot of the times when we really look at the reasoning, it's really two parts. The first part is a lot of people, when they establish their kindreds and stuff, they have this idea that they know how to build a kindred or a tribe better than anybody. They have this idea that their way is the correct way, and that their outlook is the right outlook. So in order for them to have people look at them, they feel the need to attack. They feel the need to try to persuade everybody that we are the ones who are correct. We are the ones who are honoring our gods and our ancestors the correct way. And the second part to that is that a lot of times the individual who's creating these types of tribes and these kindreds, as one of my brothers recently commented on one of my posts, I won't mention his name because I do not have his permission to mention it, but he knows who he is. He said basically, no, really what this is a power trip. And what happens is that there's people who haven't yet learned that in order to be a leader, you must first learn to become a follower. And what I mean by that particular aspect of a follower isn't blindly following somebody, but it's learning from somebody, looking at how other kindreds and other tribes are established, and maybe learning what they did to advance themselves, to grow, so to speak. But instead, we have individuals who are on these serious power trips to the point that they can't see nothing outside of the box that they have placed themselves in. And one of the things that I think really needs to be understood when it comes to our path is when you look at the three major heathen groups or kindreds, you have Asatru, also something that is known as Odinism. Then you will have Wotanism, or as a lot of people call it, Wotan's Volk. Within these three ideologies and kindreds, there is different outlooks. There is different ways that these three major I want to call them kindreds, not organizations or none of that. They're kindreds. But all three of them have a unique way that they go about performing rituals. They go about honoring the ancestors. Some of these kindreds will use focus words Some will use political words. Won't get into it because Facebook will take this off the air. But we all know the different terminologies that these particular kindreds use or ideologies use to advance their causes or to advance the folk. At some point in time, we have to stop and look at these particular kindreds or these particular tribes and look at why are they continuing to attack other kindreds or other tribes. What is their focal point? What is their main reasoning for doing this? And for those of us who have been around for a long time, we've seen this over and over and over and over. Anytime there is a political organization that is established, a religious organization within heathenism that is established, there is always the need to attack. And it begins to make a person wonder, what is the motive behind this? Why do you feel the need to do this? Are you trying to advance a hidden agenda? Are you being used as a tool to cause dissension? Or is this kindred, tribe, or individual on a power trip? If we don't stop and learn from the past, we're going to continue to make the same mistakes in the future. It's kind of like Einstein saying that crazy is doing the same thing over and over and over, but seeking a different result. You might have kindreds out there that want to wear suits and ties. They'll wear suits and ties to the bloat. Anytime they have a function, they will wear suits and ties. Who has the right to say that these people are wrong? This is what they chose to do. This is what that group of people come together and decided, this is what we want to do. If it works for them, and then this in some way makes their religious experience with the gods and the ancestors more meaningful, who has the right to attack? If a kindred wants to dress up like Vikings and they want to do the reenactment of the shields and the fighting, and for the weekend they want to take off the modern clothes and put on what they believe to be the clothes of their ancestors, and this aspect brings them closer to the gods, to the goddesses, to the ancestors. If this brings them closer, who has the right to say that they're wrong? And what gives you the right to attack these people? If you have a kindred that embraces the political aspects of today, and they incorporate the political aspects, meaning the aspects of the preservation of our folk, if by them being willing to attack the political issues that face us today, but do that under the umbrella of following the gods and following the ancestors, who has the right to say that this is wrong. If we continue to attack each other, then we don't need the news media. We don't need social media. We don't need the politicians. We don't need them to attack us because we're doing that ourselves. We are becoming the very people that we try to get away from. And what I mean by that is these other religions, Christianity, Islam. The Christians have one book, so many different denominations, and they all attack each other. Islam has one book, so many different denominations, and they all attack each other. They destroy each other. Heathenism, we don't have any book. We actually have no reason to attack each other because our religion or our way of life isn't put in one book, neatly stacked, handed to us. We have to go and search for pieces and start putting it together. And some kindreds take what they've got or what they've found and they add it to it so that it becomes something that they can grasp, that they can hold on to. So if a kindred wants to go out and build a circle and paint their faces and put runes all over themselves, this is what they have come up with. But instead, there's so much infighting. There's so much negativity that the very thing that was supposed to be beautiful, that was supposed to advance us, that was supposed to educate us, to make us evolve mentally, has become something that is no different than what we tried to get away from. We'll have different kindreds that will attack this kindred because they do one round in the sumbel, or they do the sumbel outside and not inside. One kindred might do 3 rounds. Another kindred might not hollow, or what they call hollow a circle. It's always something that, I am just going to put it bluntly, there's always something that the enemies of our way of life try to destroy us and try to keep so much discord that the tribes and the kindreds can never connect on a common denominator, which is the gods, the goddesses, our ancestors. And let me be blunt about something. Not all of our ancestors followed the god Wotan, followed Balder, believed in Freya. Not all of our ancestors believed in that. As a matter of fact, if you study our history and our ancestors as a whole, meaning the whole European, you can call it Teutonic, you can call it Nordic, call it what you want, but our race as a whole, you will find that many of them had never even heard of these gods. They had never heard of these goddesses. They had never heard of these bloats that people are doing now. They had their own gods. They had their own outlook and their own mythology. So this need to attack because a certain kindred or a certain tribe doesn't do what we believe is the correct way. Be careful with that, because this particular tribe or this particular kindred might not be established based upon the mythology and the lore of your particular ancestral line. If we start nitpicking about whose ancestors followed what, whose ancestors practiced what we have really begun to do is to isolate our ancestors as a whole. Because some of us are Irish descent. The guy Votan, all of them were never involved in the Irish or the Scottish, whatever terminologies they want to use. Some of our ancestors, let's go back to the original Aryans, the ones that came out of India, that conquered India. They did not worship Wotan, Balder, and Frey. They had their own gods. So when we start this nitpicking and trying to destroy ourselves, who I call the enemies from within, there's a stanza in the Havamal that I love, and it says, every man should stop at the door and look within the building before he enters, for no man knoweth where his enemy lies. Now, you might have a different translation, just so somebody don't nitpick and say, oh, Wakando's quoting something crazy. I look at that on a totally different level. I look at that as when you enter your own house, heathenism. Stop. Look around and look and see if you have any of your enemies amongst yourselves. Because remember, as the old saying goes, a house divided against itself cannot stand. In order for us to progress in the future, we must first go back and look what stagnated us in the past. And what stagnated us in the past, and is still doing it now, is the attacking of each other. One of the things that I have come to understand within our way of life is that it's beautiful, because there's so much richness in it. There's so much diversity in it. Meaning, you have pieces of the Celtic, you have pieces of the Nordic, you have pieces, we have history and pieces of it from out of the original Egyptian teachings. We have bits and pieces from the original Aryans, and all of this brings together a rich and beautiful way of life. When we begin to place dogma on our way of life, we begin to constrain it, we begin to squeeze it, and pretty soon you've constrained and squeezed so much that there's nothing left. When we decided to start our tribe, one of the things that we sat down and talked about was the diversity amongst those who claim to follow the gods and the goddesses. The diversity amongst the members that we would embrace. Some of them would not come from necessarily a German or a Swedish or an Irish background. So what we decided was, you know what? We follow the gods and goddesses of our ancestors. Our ancestors are broad. Not one particular group, not one particular area, but they're broad. And we embrace all of our members who might not necessarily worship the exact same gods that we do. And by doing that, it has exposed the membership to a diversity of what our ancestors believed in. And we don't make them follow one God over another. They're free to choose that. At some point in time, we have to stop destroying ourselves. We have to stop attacking each other. Rather than attack a kindred because of maybe one or two things you see that they do, why don't you maybe look at that kindred or that tribe and see what is it that we can create a common bond on? How can we unite with them? And when I mean unite, I don't mean blend the kindreds as one. Because one of the beautiful things about our way of life is the individuality and uniqueness of each kindred in each tribe. There's kindreds out there and tribes out there that I personally would not be a part of. Not because of anything negative. It's just because that particular kindred or that particular tribe does not fit within my ideology. And it could be vice versa. A person might not want to join our tribe because maybe we don't fit their ideology. But the one thing that we don't allow our members to do is to begin to start attacking other kindreds and tribes just because they might not practice the way that we do. Remember, we have enough enemies. We don't need no more. And we're never going to progress as a people. We're never going to progress as a folk until we learn to look at the positive sides of each individual kindreds and tribes and see that, okay, they might not go about spreading the message or practicing the way that I do, but yet this works for them. So, won't try not to bore you with a long video. I guess I kind of did 22 minutes already. But I felt like this needed to be said. And again, I could be wrong on everything that I said. In my eyes, I'm not. But everybody has their opinion. And I would love to hear the different opinions. Because maybe by the positive input that this video gets or the negative inputs it gets, we can find the answers to the solutions that we need in order to continue to advance the folk. With that said, like I always say, hold that heathen hammer high. Fuck their world. And I will add one more part to that. Please don't fuck your own world. Let us grow. Helsa.